All right, got my interview here with Mike Brennan, who is the new director of the National Hurricane Center. This is a very timely announcement that was made not too long ago because we were approaching hurricane season a little bit. So first of all, tell me a little bit about the duties that you are going to have as the new director.
Sure. Well, the director, I have the great privilege of working with a great staff of about 45 to 50 federal employees here at the National Hurricane Center, most of whom are meteorologists. But we also have a great science development staff, administrative personnel. We have a wide variety of folks who all work together to basically forecast tropical storms and hurricanes, hazardous marine weather, get that information out to our customers and partners. And in the director role, I sort of serve as the face and the front person for this organization, and I'm out there trying to get the message out there during events, but also leading our training and outreach activities in the off season, basically trying to conduct that awareness effort that has to take place ahead of every hurricane season, because we're always re-educating everybody and getting everybody ready for the storms that could happen this year.
And that re-educating, is necessary. Before I moved here to North Carolina, I spent time in Pittsburgh. Before that, I was in Florida. So I'm used to hurricanes, but not as much as when I moved down here. So it's something that you're going to be getting that information out to people, life-saving information. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming 2023 hurricane season, about preparations. Realistically, what can you do right now as we prepare for that season?
Well, the first thing is know what your risk is. Hurricanes are not just storms that move around and you're looking at a tracker intensity. They have hazards associated with them. We have storm surge, we have flooding from rainfall, we have wind, we have tornadoes, we have surf and rip currents. And those are the things that actually kill people. So what you can do now is you can assess your risk. Do you live in a flood prone area? Or do you have the right amount of insurance? Do you have an evacuation plan, or where you're going to go if you're asked to leave your home, especially if you live in a storm surge evacuation zone closer to the coast? You don't want to have to put that plan together when a storm is approaching. You want to have that plan in place, know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, what you're going to take with you. And you can do all that now as we approach the hurricane season. The other thing you can do is, think of your friends, neighbors, loved ones, family members that might need some help getting themselves ready for a storm. You can start to help them with their plan, know how they're going to, get where they need to go if they have special needs or they need help with transportation. Again, you can do all that advanced planning now. Get your emergency kit in place with food, water, medicine, supplies that you'll need for several days, potentially if you don't have any power or if you have to leave your home. That's all stuff you can do now ahead of the storm.
And, I think a lot of people need to keep that in mind too, just because it's never too early, right, to get those ducks in the row and be prepared for it. I wonder what your organization is doing in terms of getting prepared. Are you having those discussions, maybe getting teams together? Who's going to be flying in the eye of the storm if that were to come to be?
Yeah, we're always getting ready for the next hurricane season. We have forecasters on shift. We're doing our outreach and training, rolling out new products, meeting with our customers and partners. That's a huge part of what we'll do between now and basically the start of the Atlantic hurricane season, and we get to June 1. But yeah, we live in South Florida, a hurricane-prone area. We have to have those precautions and make our own plans for our own family, our own personal needs. You have to know, do you have the right insurance? Do you have hurricane shutters for your house? What's your evacuation plan? Where am I going to go? Where's my family going to go if we're threatened by a storm? And so that's something everybody can do. You can go to your local state or local emergency management, county emergency management website and get information about evacuation routes, evacuation shelters. And you can find information about what you would need in that hurricane supply kit.
Now, Mike, when I told my team that I was going to be interviewing you, I also reached out to our team of meteorologists who had just a couple of questions I thought I should ask as well.
Sure.
This one's from meteorologist Kat Campbell. She had said, a lot about North Carolina's inland flooding for river issues. What's on the horizon to help with messaging to the public about inland flooding?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing the National Weather Service is working on rolling out in the next few years is actual flood inundation mapping for freshwater flooding. We'll be able to actually depict on a map based on rainfall and river and what the river status is what areas could be inundated by river water. So that's going to be rolling out gradually across different parts of the country here in the next few years. But rainfall flooding is the #1 killer in tropical storms and hurricanes in the last 10 years in this country. It's responsible for about 60% of the fatalities. And you can go back to storms like Floyd or like Fran or like Florence in North Carolina, especially in central eastern portions of the state that produce widespread river flooding, widespread damage. But then in the central and western parts of the state, you have to deal with flash flooding, especially in the mountains, that can result in fatalities, landslides, other significant impacts. So rain is generally a hidden killer in tropical storms and hurricanes. It doesn't get as much attention as the wind or maybe the storm surge, but it is the most widespread hazard that has the ability to cause impacts over a huge area.
I think it's because a lot of people, when they think hurricanes, obviously they're thinking, the wind and whatnot, but it's like, well, the water too can be quite damaging, especially, if flooding becomes an issue, storm surge, etc.
Water kills about 90% of people in tropical storms and hurricanes. Wind is only responsible for about 10% of the fatalities. So the storm surge and the freshwater flooding, and also surf and rip currents. People drown at the North Carolina coast just about every year from maybe a tropical storm or hurricane that's very distant off away from the coastline, and you're out in the ocean on an otherwise nice beach day, but the surf is very dangerous. So we lose almost as many people from storms, from dangerous surf and rip currents as we do from storm surge in this country in the last 10 years from hurricanes.
I will say that you have just disabused me of the notion that the wind is the most damaging. Again, just because I feel like I think hurricane, I think wind naturally.
Yep.
Kat also wanted to ask you a little bit about the Outer Banks. Obviously, the threat of erosion for the beaches there has been a big concern. I think leaders in Dare County saying they're not able to afford to rebuild the beaches there. Yeah, the houses that are collapsing. So are you watching that carefully, and what information should people know?
Well, again, people, they need to assess their own risk. I mean, if you live in a house, obviously anywhere on the Outer Banks is certainly susceptible to storm surge, beach erosion, significant wave action. So you just have to take that into account. You know what the safety of your own home is. If it's not a safe place to stay, or if you've been asked to evacuate by your local officials, then you do need to leave, because you don't want to be out there for the storm and risk drowning in storm surge, for example. But you also don't want to be left after the storm in an environment where there's no power, there's no water, there's no emergency services. We lose almost as many people dying after tropical storms and hurricanes in this country as die during the storm. And so that's another reason why you're asked to evacuate an area, so you're not left in a place where there's significant damage and infrastructure problems where it's just not safe to be.
And I'm learning a little bit more as we continue to cover the situation on the Outer Banks. Obviously, a big concern. We've seen those videos of the houses just collapsing out there. It's becoming a growing issue, as a lot of people have noted as well. Climate change having a role to play with that as well. So obviously, we've talked obviously about a lot of the science stuff preparation, but I also want to talk about the fact that you, my friend, are an NC State alum. You got your bachelor's there, you got your master's there, and your PhD. I'm just curious. How did NC State prepare you so well to be in the position that you now currently hold?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at NC State, there's obviously the science part and the education that's a huge part in the foundation for everything we do in the science of meteorology and forecasting. But the lesson that what you need to do needs to be directly connected to bettering society for people in North Carolina and elsewhere was something I took away from my time there. And the applied nature and the direct benefits of what we do. We're not just making a forecast to make a forecast. We're making a forecast and providing information to help save lives and property, and that has direct benefits to saving to the livelihoods and the economy of North Carolina and beyond. And so I think that's that interdisciplinary nature of what we did at NC State, and the importance of communicating that information to a wide audience, not just to the science community, but to the general public, the media, all of our customers and partners, is a huge part of what I learned there.
And now you will be communicating information as the face of the National Hurricane Center. So that's obviously, I'm sure, exciting for you. And then lastly, this is kind of bearing the lead just a slightly bit. You used to also be an intern at WRAL in the Weather Center, if I'm not mistaken. What was your time like with doing that?
It was fun. I did have the opportunity to do some broadcast meteorology experiences through internships and at a couple different TV stations. And I think it's actually served me really well in my career, because working with the media is how we get our word out to the public, and knowing how broadcast meteorologists present information and take the information that we provide and then turn it into actionable information for their viewers it really helps us communicate more effectively with them. So I think it's been a great background to have.
Now, for any budding meteorologists out there who say, well, you started in TV, but then you went over to the information dissemination side. Why'd you make the switch?
Well, I was sort of interested in the different career paths that presented themselves. So I was interested in the broadcast path, but ended up going, working for the National Weather Service after I finished graduate school. So that was just a path I chose. But it's good to sort of have a variety of career experiences as you're exploring the paths that you can take within the meteorology field. You can work for the federal government, you can work for a state, you can work for private industry, the media. So there's a lot of different paths you can take. And as you're in college or graduate school, it's great to explore those and sort of see what your preferences are, and then make the best decision you can.
Mike Brennan, the new director of the National Hurricane Center. Obviously, you have a big role you're going to play. We have hurricane season that's coming up. I suspect that we will be reaching out to you possibly when that's all happening to get your insight on what may unfold during hurricane season.
Thanks so much.